Your father made his choices, my mother said once, voice bright as glass. A closed casket hides a multitude of sins. She laughed, the kind of laugh you give a waitress after you've undertipped. Don't be dramatic, Ivy. Grief is just vanity with better lighting. 2 hours after the funeral, those words kept clawing at my ribs. The house smelled like carnations and old coffee. The black dress clung to my knees like a secret. I stared at the framed photo of my dad, his uneven tie, that boyish dimple, and tried to breathe where the room refused to open. Everyone, my name is Ivy Rose, I'm 28. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. My mother skipped the burial to make a flight, her suitcase wheels scraping the tile like a retreating animal. I told myself the ache in my chest was just air refusing to behave. I told myself people grieve differently. I told myself anything that sounded reasonable in a bright kitchen with a broken garbage disposal hum and the lights too white, too honest. When the text arrived, it came with the old unsteady shiver of a man who never learned emojis. From Dad's number. 4 bubbles, plain as a threat, I'm not dead. Come to the cemetery. Now. The cup in my hand knocked the counter. Coffee bled into the saucer like a bruise. I stared long enough for the message to tone from absurd to obscene. Then I grabbed my keys. Outside, the air was thin and metallic, a coin on the tongue. The night rested low, damp with last week's rain. Street lights smeared pale halos on the windshield, and the wipers beat a slow prayer. I drove past the florist where they'd looped ribbon around lilies like polite handcuffs, past the church lot still chalked with tire marks from 100 careful exits, past the diner where my dad used to point at pies like they were old friends. Your father loved a performance, my mother had sneered once, when he danced with me in the kitchen, socks sliding, elbows foolish. Men like him don't love, they rehearse. The cemetery gate took my headlights and flung them back at me. Iron scrollwork, black and wet. I nosed the car through, gravel whispering secrets under the tires. Stones rose like crooked teeth. The names were a town of whispers. I killed the engine. Silence dropped with the suddenness of bad news. Somewhere, a wind chime rang, a thin, impatient sound. My breath made a damp echo in the cabin. The phone lay on the passenger seat, that message still lit up like a dare. I opened the door. The cold stepped in first. Grass soaked my flats with a slow, cold kiss. I kept to the asphalt loop until courage collected in my ankles. Then I cut across rows, Baker, Collins, Denton, reading the engraved years like they were math problems I could solve if I tried hard enough. The sky had the color of gunmetal and restrained itself from opening. Dad's plot wasn't hard to find. Fresh soil gives itself away. There it was, a rectangle of raw, unsettled earth, rimmed with flowers that looked embarrassed to be alive. The headstone was temporary, a white stake with his name printing the night into order. Something moved behind it. Not a person, at first. A suggestion. The kind of movement that rides the corner of your eye and refuses to sign its name. My throat closed the way doors do when someone runs down the hall. I took another step, and the earth seemed to breathe under my shoes, soft, loosening, like a mouth about to speak. The wind chime rang again, closer this time, though there were no trees. I raised my phone, its light a small, trembling moon. The screen flickered, then steadied on the stake, the flowers, the soil. There were footprints. 2 sets. One leading to the grave. One leading away, vanishing into the darker grass, as if the night had decided to keep what it liked. I froze at the edge of my father's grave, heart grinding like old gears. 2 sets of footprints. One leading toward the plot, one leading away. My breath came in short, mechanical bursts, the kind that don't carry oxygen, just fear pretending to be alive. I knelt, fingers brushing the soil. It was still damp, but disturbed, like someone had been digging, then hurriedly smoothed it over. The scent of turned earth mixed with something faintly metallic, something that didn't belong. I lifted my phone, zooming closer. That's when I saw it, a corner of fabric, pale gray, poking out just beneath the flowers. Dad. I whispered, absurdly. The word broke in half. The air shifted behind me. A single crunch of gravel. I spun, phone light slicing through the dark. Nothing. Just mist curling over the stones, heavy and low. I told myself I was imagining it, that grief does strange things, that my mother's cruelty had finally leaked into my mind. But then I heard it again, faint, rhythmic breathing. "Who's there?" My voice cracked like old wood. The sound stopped. Then, from somewhere behind the mausoleum, a whisper, "You shouldn't have come alone, Ivy." My fingers went numb. The phone trembled in my grip, the light jerking over marble faces that seemed to smirk back at me. I ran, not fast, not brave, just human, stumbling across graves, half crying, half gasping, until I reached the car. The door slammed. I locked it twice. My pulse thudded in my throat like footsteps. I checked the text again. "I'm not dead. Come to the cemetery. Now." I stared at the timestamp. Sent 10 minutes before I arrived. But the number was disconnected. I tried calling anyway. Once. Twice. Each time, the line clicked open, then I heard it. My father's voice, clear, calm, impossibly near. "Why did you bring her?" The call cut. And that's when the cemetery lights, the old yellow lanterns that had been dark for years, all flickered on at once, washing the tombstones in a sickly, trembling glow. Something wanted me to see. The cemetery lights buzzed like insects trapped inside glass. Every bulb flickered in unison, then steadied, humming low, as if the air itself had drawn breath. I sat frozen in the driver's seat, one hand on the ignition, the other gripping my phone like it was proof I hadn't gone insane. Through the windshield, the graves looked suddenly organized, almost ceremonial. My father's plot stood out like a stage under a spotlight. The flowers, white lilies and faded roses, quivered though the wind had stopped. And then I saw it, someone was standing at the grave. Not close enough to see clearly, just a silhouette, tall, deliberate, unmoving. My body acted before my mind did. I leaned forward, whispering, "Dad," even as my rational self screamed no. The figure turned slowly. I caught the faint reflection of glasses, the outline of a coat my father used to wear. My throat clenched so hard it hurt. I opened the door. Cold air rushed in, smelling of dirt and something sweet rotten, like old perfume. My phone buzzed again, another text. "Unknown, I told you to come alone." My blood iced over. I glanced back toward the figure, but it was gone, dissolved into the mist like it had never existed. I spun, heart pounding, scanning every shadow. That's when I noticed something on my windshield, a smear of soil and a folded piece of paper, wedged under the wiper blade. I stepped out, legs shaking. The note was written on funeral stationery, the kind the funeral home used for condolence cards. My hands trembled as I opened it. Only 5 words, written in my father's familiar cursive. "Ask her about the insurance." Her. My mother. The silence around me thickened, pressing on my chest. I turned, half expecting to see her standing there, suitcase in hand, smirking like she always did when she was caught. But there was only fog. Somewhere behind me, a car door slammed, not mine. I looked back toward the gates and saw red taillights fading into the night. My mother's car. She'd been here. And she wasn't alone. By the time I reached the gate, her car was gone, only tire marks glistening in the gravel, rain pooling in their grooves like tears. My body buzzed with a kind of shaking that wasn't cold. It was disbelief made physical. I climbed back into my seat, slammed the lock, and stared at the note again. "Ask her about the insurance." I said it aloud just to hear it sound ridiculous. But it didn't. It sounded familiar. The week before Dad's death, I'd heard them arguing, hushed tones leaking through the kitchen door. "You can't," he'd said, voice strained. "It's not right." Then her, calm and sharp, "You won't be around to stop me." I thought she meant divorce. I'd been naive. At home, the house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that pretends it's peace. The hallway still smelled like lilies from the funeral. I walked straight to her room. The bed was unmade, her closet half empty, hangers tilting like broken ribs. On the vanity, her perfume bottle lay uncapped beside a stack of envelopes, all addressed to a man named Colton Reese. The return address said Kingston Insurance Group. I opened one. It wasn't a love letter. It was a policy form. Life insurance. My father's name typed neatly at the top, and hers listed as the sole beneficiary. The signature line for his consent? Forged. I knew his handwriting. I'd traced it for years on birthday cards. I sank onto her bed. The world felt upside down. I remembered her at the funeral, dabbing fake tears with her boarding pass tucked into the same hand. Your father would want me to heal quickly, she'd said. He'd hate to see me miserable. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the same number. Unknown, you shouldn't have gone home, Ivy. I froze. The timestamp was now. My stomach dropped as I turned my head toward the darkened hallway. The air seemed to thicken, like someone else was breathing with me. Then, softly, impossibly, the hallway light switched on by itself. And under the hum of electricity, I heard it. My father's voice. He whispered my name. Ivy. It was a soft, broken sound, like someone remembering how to speak after years of silence. The light flickered once, steadying into a dim yellow wash across the hallway. My pulse pounded so hard I could hear it echo off the walls. Dad. I whispered, standing so slowly the floorboards didn't dare creak. Every step forward felt like a negotiation with sanity. The voice came again, closer this time, threaded with static, like an old radio caught between stations. Ivy, don't trust her. I reached the doorway, breath shallow, phone shaking in my hand. The light from my screen spilled across the family portraits lining the wall. There was one photo that had always been crooked, the one of Dad holding me at the county fair, cotton candy melting between our hands. Except now, the frame was straight. Too straight. I touched it. The wall gave a faint hollow sound. A compartment. I pressed harder, the panel shifted. Behind it, a small metal box waited, covered in dust. My hands shook as I lifted the latch. Inside, a voice recorder, a flash drive, and a folded piece of paper. The note was written in my father's handwriting. If you're hearing this, I didn't die by accident. She made sure of it. Find Colton. He's not who she says he is. Before I could even process it, the voice recorder clicked on by itself. His voice filled the room, hoarse, tired, but alive. She took out a policy on me, Ivy. Signed my name. Said she'd handle everything. Colton's helping her. If anything happens to me. The recording cut off mid-sentence. Then, footsteps. Not from the speaker, from behind me. I spun. The hallway was empty, but the perfume, her perfume, filled the air. I could almost hear the wheels of her suitcase dragging across the floor again. Another text flashed. Unknown, you shouldn't have opened it. My phone slipped from my hand. Somewhere outside, a car engine started. Then headlights swept across the living room curtains, pausing. She was back. And this time, I wasn't sure who she'd come home for. The headlights cut across the window blinds, slicing the dark into trembling stripes. I crouched behind the hallway wall, pulse thrumming against my palms. The engine idled for a long time, like whoever sat inside was deciding whether to finish what they'd started. Then the door opened, a clean, sharp sound that made every nerve in me flinch. Click. Her heels. 1, 2. Measured. Unhurried. The front door creaked. Ivy, she called, in that sing-song tone she used when pretending to be motherly. Honey, I saw your car outside, we need to talk. I didn't move. My fingers brushed the voice recorder still in my pocket, the evidence humming like a secret heart. My father's voice, proof she'd forged his name, proof this house was nothing but her stage. I know you found something, she said, softer now. Let's not make this worse than it is. A floorboard groaned. She was closer. I could smell her perfume, magnolia and guilt. I pressed myself tighter to the wall, breathing through my sleeve. My phone buzzed again. I risked a glance. Another message from unknown. Get out through the basement. She's not alone. My stomach twisted. I looked down the hall toward the basement door, half open, black as a mouth. Behind me, her voice shifted, too casual. Colton, she's here. Every sound after that moved in slow motion, the scrape of a shoe, the whisper of a jacket. Two shadows stretched along the wall, growing, overlapping. I darted toward the basement, every muscle screaming. The steps wailed under my feet as I descended into the cold. The air smelled of earth and rust. A single bulb swung overhead, buzzing faintly, casting nervous light over old boxes and a broken washing machine. I crouched behind the water heater, pressing the recorder against my chest like a prayer. Above me, footsteps followed, deliberate, searching. Then I heard his voice. Deep, unfamiliar. I told you she'd figure it out. Her reply, sharp as glass, then she doesn't leave this house. I shut my eyes. For the first time that night, I stopped trembling. Because if this was how it ended, I'd make sure they were the ones buried this time. I pressed myself against the cold metal of the water heater, listening. The air above me thickened with whispers, then footsteps. Dust drifted from the ceiling as someone moved directly overhead. Every creak was a countdown. Check the basement, my mother's voice hissed. Calm. Certain. The kind of calm you only have when you've already written the ending. A flashlight beam sliced through the stairwell. Boots followed, heavy, confident. Colton. I could see his shadow first, tall and lean, a shape that didn't belong in our house. He reached the bottom, sweeping his light across the boxes. I slipped the recorder into my jacket and backed farther into the dark. My heart beat so loud I was sure he could hear it. The beam passed inches from my face, then swung away. He moved closer to the workbench, where Dad's old tools still hung, untouched since the accident. And then, just for a heartbeat, I saw it, my father's wedding ring. Hanging on a nail, exactly where he'd left it the day before he died. A sudden clarity bloomed inside me. I grabbed it, slipping the cold circle into my palm. The metal steadied me. Colton's voice broke the silence. She's not down here. I heard my mother on the stairs. She is. She always hides. Their light swept the far wall. I ducked behind the washing machine, then noticed the small basement window, rusted, but wide enough. My father used to say it was the house's second breath. I crawled toward it, fingers scraping the concrete. The flashlight beam swung back. I froze. Colton stepped closer. Found something. He reached for the boxes, pulling one aside, and in that second, I shoved the window open. The frame screamed. He turned, shouting, "Ivy!" I didn't look back. I clawed through the gap, scraping my arms on brick, and tumbled out into the wet night. My knees hit the grass hard. Rain started to fall again, soft, steady, like applause. Behind me, the basement light flared, spilling gold across the lawn. And then I heard her voice, distant but sure. "You can't hide forever." But she was wrong. I wasn't hiding anymore. Rain washed the dirt from my arms as I staggered toward the road. My car still waited by the gate, engine cold, but I didn't start it. I sat there, shaking, replaying my father's last words on the recorder. "Find Colton. He's not who she says he is." I sent the audio to Detective Harland, the officer who'd always believed something about my father's death didn't sit right. Then I sent the photo of the forged signature, the policy forms, and the note. My phone buzzed once, on our way. Headlights approached, this time not hers. Police cruisers slid into the driveway, blue and red flashing across wet stone. I watched from the shadows as they pulled both of them out, my mother's lipstick smeared, Colton's wrists bound in silver. She looked up, saw me standing by the gate, and whispered, "You were supposed to be like me." I stepped forward, rain sliding over my face. "No, Mom," I said quietly. "I was supposed to survive you." As they drove away, dawn began to rise, thin light spilling over the cemetery beyond. I glanced once more at my father's grave, where the lilies finally stood still.